but even those have been mostly dominated by states like Texas and Florida, where his policies have been the reverse in most cases. Hello. Welcome to this week's economy. This is episode 62. My name is Dr. Vance Ginn. I hope you're having a prosperous day. Well, today I want to explain how Americans are concerned about inflation, the Fed's concern with inflation, school choice, ESG nonsense, tariff costs, and state-level jobs report. Thank you for subscribing to this podcast and to my newsletter at vanceginn.substack.com, where you can find all show notes and much more. So let's jump right into it. The first thing in the news was that Americans continue to be concerned about inflation. Rightfully so, given how the Fed's balance sheet remains bloated, its monetary base has been rising for over a year, and we see inflationary pressures all around us. In fact, whenever you look at how adults are doing, they're worse off than they were 12 months ago. That's about a third of all adults. And that was in 2023, and it's continuing to look like that in 2024 as well. This problem is not going to go away anytime soon, as I've noted, because Congress continues to spend too much, run up massive deficits, and the Federal Reserve is not cutting their balance sheet fast enough. Their assets are more than $7 trillion compared to the $4 trillion before the pandemic in February of 2020. And the Federal Reserve's monetary base, which is really the high-powered money, is growing again over the last year. In fact, it's growing by about 5% just over the last year. And since February of 2023, it's been on the rise. So this is not a good sign for inflation for us moving forward. This also is influencing a lot of mortgages and mortgage rates all around us. We've also seen housing prices stay higher than they otherwise would as people are locked into their home. They don't want to move. Why would you want to move whenever you have a 3% interest rate on your house and your mortgage, right? And now you've got to go out and get a 7% plus rate. You have no incentive to move. I'm in that case. I like my home. I don't want to move, but I definitely want to move in this environment. So if some people are considering is getting a home equity line of credit where you have additional value in your home, you go out, you finance that portion. Let's say it's $100,000, but remember, you oftentimes got to pay closing costs plus the higher interest rate. So really look at it from your own perspective on your finances of where you're at. If you need the money, then use it. But just remember, there could be a higher cost. If you don't, you might want to wait until interest rates come down. Don't spend as much in other areas, things of that nature. I think there's a lot of other opportunities for you. I talked about this on NTD News here recently. Don't miss that interview there. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas recently had a post on X.com, formerly known as Twitter, that says, quote, "Every Texas parent has the right to choose the best educational pathway for their child." Agreed. I would revise this post on X.com slightly to say that every parent has the right to choose the best educational pathway for their child. This is important given the currently ongoing runoffs in Texas that happened on May 28th. Corey DeAngelis, who I recently had on the Let People Prosper show, has a good Wall Street Journal article, or at least they talk about his work on the Wall Street Journal editorial article, I should say, about these runoffs. There are some major runoffs that are going on. May 28th, early voting has already started in Texas, but even the Speaker of the House, Dave Phelan, is going into a runoff, and I think there's going to be a lot of shakeup here soon. Good reason, because we need universal school choice. We need to put a property tax on a path to elimination and ultimately spend less in the great state of Texas. Other news, what's up with environmental, social, and governance, what we know as ESG, divestment issues in Oklahoma, Texas, and Florida, and are they appropriate? These states have passed laws that basically say taxpayer money should not be going towards ESG. It should be used for fiduciary duties to find the best rates of return. A recent report by the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, which has Steve Moore and others there, shows that those ESG investments have had 23% lower returns than the broader market indices. If you also look at some of the other things that are going on in these places, Texas and Oklahoma in particular, their economies have a lot of oil and gas. So whenever you are pushing with taxpayer money through private pensions, through municipal bonds and other things, you start pushing us toward this direction of really big government socialism, you're going to get bad results. Whenever the ESG movement was going against, at first I was initially very skeptical that the government should get involved at all. And in fact, I do not think that the government should get involved with private sector activities. That's up for them. But remember, it should be based on profitability, not as much on the social issues. In fact, when you work on profitability at your firm, you're going to also do its best for the community and for the environment and for society as a whole, because you want to mutually benefit from those actions. And those instances where that does not take place, those entities will fail at some point. Okay. And so we don't need the government picking winners and losers in the process. Let the marketplace do this. And so there's a bad report out in Oklahoma talking about how ESG has led to higher interest rates on municipal bonds and things of that nature. This is complete nonsense. I'm working on some of this right now. There's also something about this going on in Texas. And so I think as long as it's on the state, it's on taxpayer dollars that are being used, state pensions, municipal bonds, things of that nature, this should not be a place for it. We should be looking at fiduciary duty and make sure that that is the key part here there. In other news, Biden just imposed substantially higher taxes on people with all incomes, including those under 400% of or under $400,000 a year, by placing higher tariffs on China without lowering tariffs or taxes elsewhere. What this means to you is that you're going to see higher prices. Steel, aluminum, all these things go into everything basically that we buy. And a lot of the other products that are coming from China also would mean higher prices for us. So this is not a good situation. Maybe we need to get it from somewhere else. And in fact, I've talked about we need freer trade with our allies across the globe in order to put more pressure on China. This is not the way to do it, whether it be the Biden administration or the old Trump administration or a new Trump administration. Let's get away from this bad practice, arcane practice of tariffs. It's not the way to go. In other news, Section 230 has been brought up before Congress again. And look, it's not the problem. It's allowing for more opportunities on the internet, allowing for there to not be new lawsuits over every social media company and everything that's going on by individual actions that happen. We need more personal responsibility. Really what Section 230 does is allows for an institutional framework for these companies online to be able to prosper and do whatever they're going to do best. Big government is the problem when you start have regulatory capture like Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg wants to do and other things that keeps out competition. That's how you create a monopoly, not from the plethora of different companies that are in these markets today. I signed a letter by the Competitive Enterprise Institute that urged members of Congress to resist the temptation to repeal or replace Section 230. Last week, the state-level jobs report was put out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It shows that red states lead the way again, even as job growth continues to slow. Texas and Florida are the ones that are leading the country over the last year and so forth. And since the pandemic, Texas and Florida have really been a lot of the job creation. I know Biden likes to talk about all the jobs that he's created. It includes from the depth, the trough to the height of where we're at now. It says 15 million or how many ever jobs are created. It's closer to 5 or 6 million. But even those have been mostly dominated by states like Texas and Florida, where his policies have been the reverse in most cases. So California and New York isn't even back to where they were before the pandemic when it comes to job creation. And California has been slowing tremendously, and their unemployment rate is the highest in the country at 5.3%. And when you have a breakdown of pre-pandemic jobs compared to now, so February of 2020 to now, the states that have been leading the way are all red states: Idaho, Utah, Florida, Texas, right? Nevada's the only slightly Democrat area. All the rest are red. They're at the top. At the bottom are mostly blue states. The only one who's dead last actually in the contiguous 48 states is Louisiana. We got a lot of work to do. That's why I'm working at the Pelican Institute, and they're doing some great work there. Hopefully the new Governor Landry can overcome the obstacles that are there with school choice, less government spending, and deregulation and tax cuts. They need to eliminate their income taxes, but that will really help put things on the right direction. I was on Neil Cavuto's show last week talking about the Fed and inflation. Don't miss that link there. I also testified this week before the Legislative Priorities Committee at the Republican Party of Texas meetings in San Antonio before their convention there this week. I made the case for spending restraint to cut school district M&O property taxes until they are zero. That's going to be a key part of this. Don't miss my commentary at the Daily Caller on their overregulation of the banking sector by the Biden administration, which includes included toxic work cultures and other problems that should be rejected. This also includes how the CFPB has too much power and should be ended after SCOTUS rules funding by the Fed is unconstitutional. What we really need is just get rid of it entirely. If you missed my Let People Prosper show this week, it's with Topher Field, who's a two-time Australian Libertarian of the Year. He award-winning director of Battleground Melbourne and author of Good People Break Bad Laws. We discuss the COVID lockdowns in Australia and his fight to liberate people. You don't want to miss it. The upcoming Let People Prosper episode on Monday is with Ryan Bourne, the Evan Scharf Chair for the Public Understanding of Economics at Cato Institute. We discuss his recently published book where he edited, which is titled The War on Prices, How Popular Misconceptions About Inflation, Prices, and Value Create Bad Policy. Don't miss that one. And the quote of the week is by Milton Friedman, guess that, quote, "Complete free trade is not politically feasible. Why? Because it's only in the general interest and in no one's special interest." We've got to remember that every time, okay? And the Bible verse of the week is Proverbs 11:24. Quote, "Give freely and become more wealthy. Be stingy and lose everything." One thing we should remember is that's through voluntary transactions, voluntary charity that even Jesus talked about. It wasn't through forced sort of thing, through government and redistribution and things of that nature that some people get caught up with. So all that to be said, please go and check me out at my newsletter, vanceginn.substack.com, or my website, vanceginn.com. And until next time, let people prosper.